Salutation, statistics supporters. This is a Stats MR, here to share a presentation to sleep through. As promised, since the last video related to worldwide employment stats did not have any data related to Oceania, today I will present some data related to a country in Oceania, specifically New Zealand. I will present data related to forestry, agriculture, and livestock. The data will go into hectares, which is 100 acres. And an acre is approximately 43,560 square feet. The data will show raw numbers, percentage changes, fluxes from year over year, and data related to 1,000 people, or harvestries or livestock per 1,000 people, to give a per capita measure. So, before I get into the stats, I will go over a little bit about New Zealand. So New Zealand is an island nation. The primary islands are the North Island, where the largest city of Auckland and the capital Wellington reside, and the South Island, so Christchurch, Queenstown, Dunedin, and Invercargill reside. In addition to the two main islands, there's an island chain to the east called the Chatham Islands, and Stewart Island, which is south of South Island. So those are the four main islands in New Zealand. Alright, now that we have gone over the location of New Zealand, let's get into the data. Alright, so let's start with the Forestry Statistics. So, we have measurements for new hectares planted, hectares replanted, exotic timber harvested in cubic meters, and exotic timber harvested in hectares. I also have percentage increase year over year for new hectares planted, and year over year percentage increases for exotic timber harvested. I also have some data. I found the population in New Zealand for the year and divided the new hectares planted per 1,000 people and the total exotic timber harvested per 1,000 people. So you see the changes. There's been a steady decrease most years in new hectares planted, at least up until about 2010. Now 2010, you start seeing it increases, big increase in 2011 to 2010. And then you have a little bit of a dip, a decrease in new hectares planted in the mid-2010s. And then you have a large increase in new hectares planted towards the end of the 2010s. The last data that was available for the forestry was 2018 from the source. And as always, I'll leave a link to my source data in the description. In terms of percentage for exotic timber harvested, this is much lower. There are lower fluctuations. See, and it kind of goes from one year to another. You get a decrease, then an increase, then a decrease, then an increase. Then kind of small fluctuations. Again, it's usually less than 10%. 2010s, and you have double-digit increases in exotic timber harvested from 2018 to 2017. And so, and then if we look at this on a per capita basis, you'll notice that the exotic timber harvested per 1,000 people is larger than the new hectares planted per 1,000 people. You can see it's 8.65 compared to 11.99 2001, 4.81 compared to 12.52 2002. And then, like I say, for every year, there's more harvested than new acres or new hectares planted. That's consistent throughout the data. Now, if we look at the charts, we compare. And this is the orange, the new hectares planted, and the blue is the total area replanted. So you see the replanted hectares are higher than the new planted areas by considerable margin. Now we look over the exact timber harvested. You see 2001 to 2018. See, it starts off above 45,000 hectares. And then it keeps increasing generally. To 2018, it had the highest number of hectares harvested, 62,103. Next, we look at the percentage increase and decrease. See that the biggest changes were in the mid-2010s in terms of new hectares planted. Seems like the biggest change year over year was in the late 2010s for the exotic timber harvested. Next, we get into the chart for the hectares planted and harvested per 1,000 people. And again, we see consistently the exotic timber harvesting outpaced the new hectares planted per 1,000 people. Again, by a considerable margin. Alright, next let's go to agriculture. So, here they're tracking a few different crops: apples, kiwis, avocados, wine grapes, olives, onions, potatoes, squash. Now, the data that I had, it's not consecutive years. It's 1994, 2002, 2003, 2005, 2007, 2009, 2011, 2012, 2014, 2017, 2019, and 2020. Next, I did a correlation to see the amount of the different crops harvested with the population, see if there's a correlation between an increase in the population and the increase in crops harvested. What I found was there's a strong negative correlation. So as the population's increased, fewer apples have been harvested. So I don't know if apples might be a lot more expensive than what they were 28 years ago. There's a positive correlation with kiwi, strong positive correlation with avocados, strong correlation with a lot of grapes. And again, this might be due to the increased demand for wine. Slight negative correlation for olives. A weak positive correlation with onions. Almost no correlation with potatoes. And a weak correlation with squash. Next we get into the percentage change. Like I say, I compared what years I had data available for. Compare the percentage increases or decrease. Say apples decreased. I say overall there's been some upticks. Like I say 2019 to 2017 there's an uptick, but overall a decrease. Let's see, 1994, 15,257 apples were harvested. 2020, 9,789 hectares were harvested. Kiwi fruits, generally there was an increase, I say. Nothing huge. I say there was a negative 13.94, 2014 to 2012, and then a positive 27.48, 2019 to 2017. Now, for avocados, there's a massive increase, 2002 to 1994 of 125%, 125.89 to be exact. Then, 17.76, 2007 to 2005. And other than that, strong increase, 13.6, 2019 to 2017. Now for the grapes, the strong uptick. I say grapes start off with 7,160 hectares. And then 2020, 35,576. Guess a lot more wine's being consumed. So, again, 141.62, 2002 to 1994. You get a 26.2, 2005 to 2003. 19.45, 2007 to 2005. And it's kind of leveled off in the late 2010s. Olives, I didn't have data in 1994 for olives, but see, negative, very negative. So 2,612, 858. So the olives are probably a lot more expensive now than what they used to be. Onions range, it's positive 14.04 to negative 14.21, 13.99, 2011 to 2009. So again, it's kind of where you got some large increases and then decreases. For the onions, I say it went from 4,929 to 5,588. And let's say potatoes, it's kind of fluctuated, nothing big. It's got 9,524, 10,901. So again, about 1,400 more hectares harvested for potatoes. So, I apologize if you hear the gardening equipment outside. So, let's get down. And the squash, 7,509 compared to 7,070, so a small decrease. Now for the apple per capita measurements. So in 1994 there were 4,000 or 4.21 hectares of apples harvested per 1,000 kiwis. Kiwi were, New Zealanders. And in 2020 there were 1.93 hectares of apples harvested per 1,000 New Zealanders. So look at the kiwi fruit. 1994, 3.36. 2020, 3.06. Slight decrease. Avocados, 0.37. 0.96. Slight increase. Now here was the biggest one. So in 1994, there were 1.97 wine grapes hectares harvested per 1,000 New Zealanders. In 2020, that jumped from pretty much just under 2 to 7.02. So there's an additional 5 hectares harvested per 1,000 New Zealanders in 2020 compared to 1994. Olives, I don't have data, but let's just take 2002, so 0.66 per 1,000 to 0.16 in 2020, so decrease. Onions, 1.36 compared to 1.14, so decrease, slight decrease in hectares of onions harvested per 1,000 New Zealanders. The potatoes, 2.63 compared to 2.15, slight decrease. Squash, 2.07 compared to 1.39 2020, so a slight decrease. So let's look at the graphs here. So if we're looking, you can see the main crop the last 2 decades has been grapes. Grapes outpaces apples, outpaces kiwis, outpaces everything else. So the grapes are the cash crop in New Zealand. Now let's get into hectares per 1,000 people by year. So again, we got the grapes are leading the way. Say it was apples in 1994, but it's been grapes by a considerable margin. And kiwis coming in second, over the years. So you look at the percentage of changes over the years. You got the strong increase in we go down here, yeah. Strong increase in avocados and grapes. But grapes generally increase, and then the apples have been decreasing. Olives have been decreasing. See that percentage change all the way through. Alright. Now let's go to livestock. So here, we're tracking beef cattle, dairy cattle, sheep, lamb, deer, pigs, and horses. Then I got the population data. Yeah. I also tracked, what percent of the cattle population was born in a specific year. So that That's interesting. So, 1994, 25% of the beef cattle were born. As you see, that's consistently in the above 20%. Look at the dairy. Now this was hard to believe. So look at the dairy cows born and the total amount of dairy cattle. So more than half the dairy cattle was born each year. So I don't know, that I found that hard to believe, but maybe I'm missing something. But again, that's when I looked at the data that kind of stuck out to me. So look at the beef cattle. 1994, there were 5,047,848 beef cattle. In 2021, it was 3,964,811. And then I also did a correlation with the population growth. So it's a strong negative correlation with the beef cattle and the population. So beef is probably a lot more expensive in New Zealand than what it used to be. There's a strong positive correlation with dairy cattle and the population at a 0.8. Strong negative correlation with 0.93. This, I think, was sheep. Yeah, sheep and lamb had a strong negative correlation between the population growth and the livestock. And all these, the rest were negative. Negative 0.79, negative 0.93, negative 0.89. So the deer, the horses, and the pigs all had a negative. So I don't know. If you see smaller populations with an increased human population, you probably have a greater cost. Now we look at the percentage changes. So again, negative ranged from negative 11.03%. The rest of these all under 10. See any large percentage changes? That there's a 34.44% increase for the dairy cattle from 2002 to 1994. Negative 20% in 2002 to 1994. Got another negative 11 in 2008 2007. Since then, negative, nothing huge. I think this last row is horses. Yeah, horses. Yeah, the data on the horses one is available. There are a few years there wasn't anything, but this had greater variation. Negative 11.86. 2011 to 2010, and then you had a negative 20.69, 2015 to 2014, and a positive 19.22, 2016 to 2015. So, and then we get into the per capita data. So, there were 1,394 beef cattle per 1,000 people. So there are more beef cattle than people in 1994. You see that steadily declining. To 7.72, 2011. 1,205.80 in 2021 for dairy cattle. Sheep had a drastic decline, so 13,661 sheep per 1,000 people. So I think that makes out about 13 sheep per person, but again, so it was 13,661. And it declined to 5,016.42. That's a huge decline. 2021, you had 4,465.62. This is lamb, I think. Yeah, lambs. Compared to 10,009.67 in 1994. The deer, 1994 was 340 deer per 1,000 people. And then in 2021 is 158.69 per 1,000 people. Pigs, you had 48.48 in 2021 per 1,000 people. And 1994 was 116.75. Horses, 1994, you had 18.73 per 1,000 people. And then in 2021, you had 7.85 per 1,000 people. Now let's get into the charts. So here's the charts per 1,000 people. As you see, this is sheep. I don't know why it's giving the data for the deer, but it's okay. So sheep was the highest, followed by the lambs. And you get into dairy cattle, beef cattle. Now let's get into percentage of dairy cattle born. And that fluctuates between 61, yes, well, you got into the low upper 50 percentiles in the mid 2010s. Got up to 72.77 in 2021. Percentage of beef cattle. So let's see, you got this varied, again, not a huge percentage change. Fluctuated between 25 to 21.29. This is the total, this is the number of livestock per year. So again, we have sheep. Let me see, it's projected to keep decreasing. Sheep, then lambs, then you got beef. I think the biggest, dairy is the third most popular livestock. And you get into percentage changes. So you get increases in dairy and deer. Oh, it's not huge. Large negative for horses, then offset by an increase in horses, but nothing wild, all below 10% for the most part, the last 20 years. Anyway, that wraps up the agricultural data. Anyways, thanks if you're still awake. Thanks for sticking with the presentation. Upcoming, the next video, I have some interesting data I found for Tuvalu, another country in Oceania. If you have any suggestions for any data you'd like me to go through, please leave a comment. As always, this is a Statsima wishing that your efforts have a positive correlation with the results. Kia ora. So,